Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and it's a pleasure to be here with Avi and Naftali. If I could just give you maybe a bit of background about myself. Started university 1978. So I went off to university, did a degree in land administration, and that gave me the facility to go into a number of property-orientated elements. I could have done residential sales, chartered surveyor, estate agency, land agency, etc. I went into residential estate agency and bought my first property in 1986. So it wasn't actually my own property to live in, it was a holiday home in Scotland, and that gave me the appetite to go on and buy more property. So in 1992, a friend and I started to buy terraced properties in a Cheshire town called Ellesmere Port. We would buy them in a fairly run-down condition, renovate them, and sell them on. The initial purchase price was £7,000 in those days. We would spend a similar amount renovating them. We bought 12 in 2 years. And I think the moral of the story is those 12 properties probably cost us £150,000 in 1992, let's say. If we retained them, they would be worth £1.5 million now. An indication of how property can increase in value and give you a return. If we retained them and tenanted them, they'd probably give us £7,500 a month in rental income. And I wouldn't be stood here today talking to you. I'd be retired long ago. So let's look maybe at the residential market in the UK. Avi's asked me to give you some sort of information as to what I would look for. I currently own 3 rental properties, one in Manchester, one in Liverpool, and one in Stockport, a suburb of Manchester. So what do I look for in that rental property, in that investment? It's not an investment if it sits as an empty property. It has to be occupied. It has to be producing that rental income. But I also look for ease of rental. I'm too busy here today, this week, with Avi and Naftali to worry about the landlord ringing me up, or rather the tenant ringing me up and talking about a leaking washing machine, a light that doesn't work. So I think what we need, we want capital growth, rental growth, and ease of renting. Avi can organise all that for you through the contacts that he has in the UK. But let's look at that rental market. Where does that rentability come from? If you look at the current average price in the UK, you're talking for a 2-bed apartment around 220,000. If we take that figure of 220,000 and work back, if we look at the salary of an average person, let's talk about Manchester, the average salary in Manchester is £30,000. So where is he going to save an amount of money to enable him to put the deposit down? Currently, mortgage rates, you're probably looking at a 75% loan to value. To do that in my head, let's talk about 200,000. So we're talking of a mortgage of 150, we're talking of a deposit of 50,000. An average 22, maybe 30-year-old hasn't got 50,000 in his back pocket. He's looking at the bank of mum and dad, his parents lending, giving him the money. But let's assume parents do that, and that's what I did for my daughter. We bought her a property, or she bought it, but we gifted the deposit in Manchester. Without that, she wouldn't have got on the property ladder. So that 50k equates to a £150,000 mortgage, 5 times income. Let's look then at the rental market for that £200,000 apartment. We're talking of about £1,000 a month, £12,000 per annum. When you put that, and that's a net figure, when you put that into the gross salary, you're looking at somewhere around £15,000 earned income. It's half of the salary of that individual to rent that apartment. On the strength of that, they will never save that deposit. So effectively, the younger generation in the UK, that sort of 22 to 35-year-old, is probably locked into that rental market. And that's where the demand is coming from. Statistics from the National Office of Statistics in the UK say that come 2020, 7.2 million households will be in rented accommodation. That will be the largest tenure group in the UK. So it's moved from owner-occupier to a rental market. Looking at the rental market for Manchester, We've seen capital growth somewhere in the order of 26% over the last 3 years, and rental growth, similar figure, 26%. So Avi's just asked me to give you those sort of figures to show where that rental market is coming from. So if you buy residential property, certainly the northern cities, Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, you can see where that rental demand is. But let's look at the development that we're marketing ourselves, which is 1 London Road. Avi's going to run a video that my colleague, Mike Holliday, and myself shot while we were preparing for this event. So 1 London Road is purpose-built student accommodation in Newcastle under Lyme. Newcastle under Lyme is a couple of miles outside of Stoke. The affiliated universities to Newcastle are Keele, Stafford, and an affiliation to the teaching hospital of North Staffordshire Teaching Hospital. If we look at the number of students that this development will facilitate, you've got about 9,000 in Keele, 2,000 in the teaching hospital, and 17,000 in Stafford. So we've got just short of 30,000 students in that vicinity. If we look at what's available in Newcastle under Lyme, there is only 1 or 2 purpose-built student accommodations, having about 12 to 20 units in them. The university itself of Keele has 2,500 rooms. So if we take that global figure, more so for Keele, of 9,000, we're short by about 6,500 rooms. And that's where our developer Abode come into it, and our development of 1 London Road. This will be the 3rd development that they have done. First one was Keele House, and the video later on will show you part of what Keele looks like. That completed in 2017, fully occupied. For occupancy for the 18-19 year, we're looking at probably 90% at this moment in time. We've then got UCAS clearing in August, and that will fill that capacity. That was Keele House. The second scheme that they've in construction at the moment is called Orme House. 100 units in Orme House, split between an existing Grade 2 listed building and a new build section. Phase 1, the conversion of the listed building, will complete September of this year. The second phase will be January of next year, in time for the January intake into Keele. So what we can see here, that's myself obviously on the right, Mike on the left, that's the site of 1 London Road. Works will start in September of this year, and it will be a 15-month build to build out the 2 blocks. Block 1 will have 108 units, and Block 2 will have 66 units. We haven't launched Block 2 yet. We've launched Block 1 and sold about 80% of it so far. So I think, talking to Jason today, my colleague here, I think there's about 29 remaining within that block. Current prices, you're looking at 64,999 with a 10% assured return for 5 years. We can verify the assured return based on the figures that Keele House is giving us, and we know that we'll get the occupancy. With such a shortage of student accommodation in Newcastle under Lyme, we're confident that we will get that occupancy both in Orme House and in 1 London Road. If we look at it, there's a poster there. It shows the price of just short of 70,000 and a 9% return. Whilst we're here this week, we've reduced the price to 65 and upped the return to 10% for 5 years. Comes fully furnished. It's a turnkey investment. You put your money in, and for 5 years, you will see that return. That return will be 6,500, less the ground rent, which is £350 per annum. So you'll be seeing a return of 6,150.